So let's talk reishi. Reishi is a natural mushroom, completely legal, does not cause any type of alteration in your thoughts. And reishi is an anti-inflammatory. It's really, really great for symptoms of anxiety. If you also have high blood pressure, reishi is something really, really good that helps with blood pressure. We recommend this for people who are really needing to have additional focus. If you have sleep issues, anxiety issues, or blood pressure issues, check out reishi.
Hey, this is Katie Walker with Rethink with Revitalist on how we are changing the narrative of mental health. I'm excited to let you know that we are now doing something called 22 Raw, to where we sit down with veterans. We have 22 real-time conversations, raw video, raw verbiage, talking about real-time issues that veterans need to hear. So I hope you enjoy listening to all of these amazing leaders being vulnerable in this space, helping to make the change that's needed. Thanks for watching. Hey, this is Katie Walker with Rethink with Revitalist, and today I'm here with Ian Patterson, and we're helping to change the narrative of mental health, and Ian's doing some amazing things. So Ian, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell me about yourself. Well, you served in the military.
So I served in the Air Force for 10 years. I was Special Operations, Weather and Tactics, spent most of my time with the Army. Post-military, was a teacher for a year, and then moved into hospitality. In 2021, took into a more of a humanitarian role with Task Force Pineapple, which has become Operation Recovery, which brings us here to MCON under the Heroes Wellness Collective, which is really an app focusing on mental health, mental wellness, and kind of whole wellness for the traumatic experience career fields, from military to active duty, first responders, kind of all encompassing.
Yep. And that's something, I talk to people a lot of times about, like, veterans and first responders, and, some people don't really see like the integration of those two fields. There's a lot of synergies there.
Very much so. And even further out than that, from the Federal Bureau of Prisons to the CIA to TSA, as we were saying earlier, construction workers, certain construction fields, oil, people on oil rigs, very traumatic, very dangerous work. And there's a lot of correlations in between these industries that we're really trying to bridge the gap and pull both the peers as well as the organizations that service these all into one location.
So the one location, like, say if I was someone struggling with mental health or whatever else, like, and I wanted to go to your app, how would I find that? It's
on both the Google and the Apple Store. It's the Heroes Wellness Collective, or you can just search it at the heroeswellnesscollectivehub.org.
Okay.
So super easy, straight in. It's a couple of questions, and you're right into a live system, from live medical assistance if it's needed, crisis help desk for mental health. We have social services providers. We have career services. Say you're in the military, you move around a lot, your spouse needs assistance. We have that. And we also have alternative cares, doctors that focus on veterans with alternative non-Western treatments.
Yeah, so it's like the psychedelic space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We want it, like I said, we want it to be all encompassing.
So is it a platform that's confidential, to where if I'm worried about my mental health, like, I don't want people to react because I feel so bad right now, like, I don't want people to react and institutionalize me if I, am in the red zone? Like, is it a place to where veterans, first responders can go and feel safe, that they can be honest with where they're at without fear of repercussion?
Yes, it is a 100% safe space. And if we feel that we need to take it to a safer space, our professionals, our partners will pull the veteran out into another pathway, whether it's a phone call or going into a more secure system that we utilize. But it is a 100% gate-kept network that not just everybody can jump into.
Nice.
We verify every partner and every veteran and every individual that comes into the system.
Okay.
And we even break it down because we know there's differences in the career fields. We know that fighter pilots have a different mentality and talk a different lingo. We know that the special operations community talks a different lingo. So we even have subsections within our groups that they can participate with just, I hate to use this term, but their own kind, but they still get the full benefits of the app, but then they have their own private rooms that they can speak to one another and share like experiences.
You're not alone.
Exactly.
Here's your people.
Exactly. And that way they can, they can silo if they need to silo within their own realm, or they can be full participants within the whole app as they choose to be.
Yep. Yeah. And you're right, because that's a big piece. So I practiced anesthesia, psychiatry, more anesthesia in the hospital setting for a while. And, but I also grew up playing sports. So I played Division I sports in college too. And I was speaking to some therapists one time, and this one therapist was like, no, therapists always meet you where you are. And I'm like, but you can't from a therapy standpoint, because a therapist can't meet you where you're at because you came from special forces, and like that's your training that The only person who can meet you where you are at is the person who's had similar training, because they get it. Exactly. They know where you are. So putting those people in the different pieces, because it was an interesting conversation that we had. It was a group conversation. I used to get ejected all the time, like in games. And she's like, yeah, that's from your childhood trauma. I was like, but I didn't have any childhood trauma. And the therapist is like, no, that's like outburst is from childhood trauma. And I'm like, and so it was good because it was me and other athletes on the call. And the other athlete, one of the girls, she's amazing, did WNBA. She got in trouble all the time, but what we were talking about, we're like, no, it's not from childhood trauma. Like mine specifically is, if you give me a goal or a task that I'm passionate about, I will get it done. And it does not matter who gets in the way.
Yep. 100%.
Right? So and that's what I would be taking out of the game, But she was saying, the girl who worked in the WNBA, and I actually had this too. I had a lot of physical altercations with my brother growing up. And she did too. She said, we never talked about anything. We just fought it out, And so it was like, that's the way I was, I grew up. That's the way, But for the therapist to sit there and say, no, it's childhood trauma. We're going to have to work on your trauma one day. And it's like, you're telling me you meet me where I'm at, but you're self-imposing things on me that don't exist. So I always ask people when I talk to them, what's your background? And some people are like, why do you ask them that? Or I'll be like, what's your profession? And the only reason I'm asking them that is because I will change my language if I'm speaking to a Marine or a neurosurgeon versus if I'm speaking to a therapist or a kindergarten teacher, because we're all taught very different ways. So I love the fact that your app can do that. And that's what we're not doing in society. We're trying to make everybody aligned with one. There is no one. Like, we need to respect everything that we came from in the past, because that's what's trained us to be where we are today.
Yeah. And we also have such a competitive, to the athletic phrase, even in the nonprofit space and in the mental health space, it's a very competitive, well, this is what I do, and I don't want you to steal my thunder. And we're really pushing to get that, to break that mold and that mindset, because, when we set up the Heroes Wellness Collective, there's 1,000,001 organizations out there that help, but most of them stop at a certain point.
Yeah.
But what happens if you can bring these, or a coalition of the willing together? It'll never be everybody, and we understand that. But if you can bring the coalition of the willing together, that stop point may just be a roadblock that they didn't know where to move to the next section.
That's right.
And our focus is to, with the org-to-org communication, somebody may say something that may spark a conversation, and now you have two orgs that are working together that traditionally wouldn't, creating a whole new pathway around the roadblock.
Yeah.
And especially in the world today with the Glock community, the OAR communities, like we said, our traumatic career fields, and with potential new combat and warfare moving forward with this new drone, close combat quarter drones, there's going to be a lot of things that a lot of people are going to have to come together on.
Yeah.
And we want to be that catalyst.
Yep.
And we're not mental health professionals. We're humanitarians. That's what we do. But what we do really well is building coalitions.
That's right.
To get over the hump to get the mission completed. And we've started to see organizations that are very heel stuck and steadfast in their ways start to go, oh, maybe this does work.
Yeah. Well, think about it, right? Because it's, people are like, how do you look at things? And like, I always view it, just growing up in sports, it's helping to view a lot of different things. But, military too, it's like, there's so many people out there, they don't know how to work on a team. And when you have a team, it's like, what can you do? What can you do? What's your skill set? What's this skill set? How are you going to support this mission? And that's the beautiful thing, is like bringing in military and then really like healthcare workers, like in the hospital setting especially. Now, not healthcare workers in the outpatient space. Healthcare workers in the outpatient space are very isolated a lot of times. They don't know really how to do that. But like in the hospital, it's like somebody comes in with a gunshot wound. It's like, all right, you take this, you take this, you take this. And if you all are not focused on that synergies, the person's going to die. If you're focused on the synergies, then that's an amazing team. It's an amazing symphony in this chaotic time. It's exactly what military does. And that's the piece, that we've got to start teaching people is like, there's data that just came out saying there's an 80% shortage of providers now in the space.
Yes.
80%. Like, that's crazy,
Something that's been known for decades. For decades, we've been fighting this and building towards this, and we have an 80% shortage still.
Right. Yeah. And then the people are like, oh no, like there's a war going on right now in Texas. There's some anesthesia docs who want to just like close all the ketamine clinics in Texas, and they just want to run it.
Yep.
And it's like, no, like we have a critical need right now. We need to be training nurse practitioners, physician assistants, psychiatrists, neurologists, primary cares. We need to be training them all on this skill set. Like, what's your issue? And I actually told them, I said, why don't you all put it into play, like to where if someone on a higher level makes a decision, it's almost like fiduciary responsibilities. If you make a decision and it benefits you, but it actually does not benefit the space, then you get repercussion and retaliation against. And that's what doesn't exist in the healthcare field right now, which is crazy.
And it is. And then there's no so what. And
you're right.
And that's big because now there's no trust.
Right.
So there's no backlash. And then it removes the trust.
Yep. Yeah.
Now you're forcing people who need what you provide, but they're not coming to you because they have no trust.
Right, 100%. So your platform, I love it because it's like, it's bringing everybody together and it's like, all right, let's go, let's roll, kind of thing. And it's, when you bring people together like that, not only do they learn, but they're also becoming their own people too, right? So you're meeting people in the same sector and, because it's like me and you, like we met today, and we're like, oh wow, you're doing this and you're doing this. And then all of a sudden that like loneliness of leadership in this space doesn't become so lonely because you're seeing like all these different facets of people. And then you start seeing that horsepower come together because it's going to take us all to address this mental health crisis. And I tell people, like, I don't know if it's insulting when I say this to veterans, but like my personal opinion is we're in the biggest war that we've ever been in.
Exactly.
And and the enemy is within. Like, we can't see the enemy. So it's like, it's going to take all the leadership, all the skill sets in order to solve the mental health crisis, the pain crisis, the addiction crisis, because all three of those exist together. It's the same thing. They're not individual silos, but we're making them individual silos, which is ignorant. But it needs to be all these, heavy hitters that are coming together to address all of it.
And I know with the military in particular, they hyper focus into one, and the other one sits and festers, and we need to prevent that.
Yep.
And we're seeing some improvement in the military side of providers, but they're so short. They're short-handed.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the so what. It's closing the gaps and getting the outside orgs to be the force multiplier.
Yep.
That's the so what. But we also have to get past our own egos.
You have to get past him. And like my ex-husband, he's an amazing guy. I was just married to two people, my company and him. And he told me to kind of choose either or.
Yep.
Because I wasn't a good wife by any means. But but he's a heart surgeon, and he was talking about. I told him, I said, okay, so when I go into the office and I educate physicians, he's like, first, you never say that. He said, because as physicians, we are the highest level of training and no one educates us. He said, so therefore you need to say, I'm bringing you new information. So I'm like, I'm bringing the new information, but it's right, it's egos. And not only that, and that's one thing I've noticed, like my skill set. So I grew up in the hospital, started working in the hospital when I was like 16, and I was a student nurse, and then became a nurse, and then went back to anesthesia school, became a CRNA, and then, kind of, worked my way up or whatever. And so I've had a lot of training in the hospital sector. Like I understand the hospital sector. I understand all the different disciplines. But then I went and worked in the OR, and I did cardiac anesthesia, neuro anesthesia, OB, spinals, epidurals, things like that. So I know that language, technique too. So I'll tell people, like with me, it's like, whoever you need to speak to in the medical field, come get me, because I know the language that they can hear. Because if you go in, I was talking to a SEAL the other day, and he's like, no, but they need to hear this. And I'm like, but they won't if you come in that angle.
Yep.
You come in and you say, because we want to use ego actually on our benefit side, because you come in and you say, so what are you trying to do? And you hear a politician is like, oh, well, I'm just trying to, get more community backing and all this. Well, here, what about this? And this, if you do this could help you to get better community backing, so that's the ego piece, or it's like psychedelics. I mean, it's crazy. Like I lost my job in the hospital over opening a ketamine clinic. I got the choice of either close the clinic or stay at the hospital. Voodoo medicine or real medicine, so I chose voodoo. Even though it's like the most unbiased data in the world, and it's amazing. There's data.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that, the piece with all of this was like, now it's like I can go to a heart surgeon and say, there's actually data out there that shows people who have done psychedelics in the past, it's actually shown that they actually recover more quickly from heart attacks. Or like they've taken like psilocybin and they mixed it recently with Ozempic, and they're making islet cells. So meaning that they're making new cells in the pancreas, which may cure diabetes. So people are like, that's not real, the medicine. And I'm like, guys, like, no, and this is in your language. Like this is your book in your language. So what we're doing is going to change the world. It's just going to take all of us.
It takes buy-in.
It does.
And to get the buy-in, we have to reprogram, so to speak, the old school mind thoughts, the old school way of thinking.
Yeah. No, I'm close the book, admit failure, open up a new one.
Yeah, we had great things, but there's new ways to do it.
Yep.
And those who stay in the path with the new ways are going to be the ones that move medicine forward.
That's right.
And bring the trust back.
Yes. Yeah. Nobody, because like where I'm in Western medicine, like if I go to a psychedelic conference, I usually don't tell anybody that I'm in medicine at all, because they're so traumatized by the Western field.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have to break down, is all of these taboos and stigmas, and like, and let them know that like, and this is the anesthesia training, kind of maybe what you were mentioning earlier. Like if somebody says, I'm ready to kill myself, I'm like, all right, let's go get help. Like, come on, let's go do a ketamine infusion right now, versus other people may be like, oh no, let's call 911 or send them to the ER. Like, I can't touch them, they're too acute, and I'm like, and I tell my people at the company, you do not turn anybody away. If somebody comes and they're asking for help, you figure out how to help them. And if it's not with us, it's with somebody else, but you figure out, you do not ever turn them away. Because people, unfortunately, in society, if we say, oh, they're too severe, and they go out and kill themselves, we're okay with it because, well, we didn't intervene, it wasn't me. And I'm like, no, it was you, because you turned them away.
You let them walk out the door.
You let them walk out the door, and you should be just as responsible for letting them walk out the door than were if you attempted to help them and it didn't work.
And, I was in meetings in LA with the TSA, and they have pretty rigorous, obviously their job's stressful. They get beat up day in and day out. And we're talking suicide prevention. They have a pretty high suicide rate, but they still do the old school mind thought, well, if you come in and self-report, your career is over. But we want you to self-report.
Right.
Well, you can't have it both ways.
Yes.
And it was a perfect way for us to step in as an external organization say, but there's an alternative.
Yep.
Here it is for you.
Yep.
Now you keep your job, yet you still get the services that you need and not have to worry about that extra stressor, which could be that could be the one point that puts them over the top.
100%.
Well, if I go and, if I tell them I'm suicidal, my life's over anyway, because they're going to take my career from me.
Yeah. I know. It's like, what are we doing?
I know.
Like a rock in ours butt.
But it's such an old school way of thinking. Like, and we understand, yes, the security clearance are important. They need to be sound mentally, but we can get them the help that we don't have to threaten their well-being to do it.
Right.
And there's a lot of different alternatives to that.
Yes. And we want them to get help previously. I mean, because otherwise, it's like that guy, I don't know if you remember this, I was just so traumatized by this story. It's like in South America, he was a pilot, locked himself in, and he just crashed the plane into a mountain, and it was like 250 people on the plane.
Yeah.
And it's just because we don't give them that safe space to say, hey, you good? And, but yeah, no, we'll talk. I've got a risk mitigation scale that I created that, it's been validated with over almost 12,000 people. But it's risk. I ask people all the time, like, how do you measure your mental health? And everybody's like, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
So I've got this scale, and it's kind of like an R ring per se, but it's a scale, but it's like, here's your number, here's your number, here's your number. And in that way, it's like, and it's 5 questions, right? I mean, the questions that I created, most people thought I was crazy, but it's because I saw a pattern. So I created these 5 questions, and they're kind questions. And those 5 questions connect 5 diagnoses. So that connects like suicidality, insomnia, PTSD, anxiety, depression. And those 5 run together. So with these pieces, it's like if we can get these very basic questions in people's mindsets, like they'll be able to start slowly learning how to measure their mental health outside of. And like the number one question that topped all the questions that have ever been created is, how would you rank the value in your current life purpose? Like that was the highest ranking question.
I mean, it's a dead-on question.
Yeah,
It's right there.
Yeah. So it's like, if we were like, okay, is there value in what I'm doing right now? Like if we can make it more analytical, right? One of the other questions is, how would you rank the quality of your sleep? And it's like, if we notice that we're not sleeping well, okay, wait a minute, I'm not sleeping well. I know it's going to affect my mental health. Let me start figuring these things out. Another one is, how would you rank your daily motivation? When I tried to do them, because some of those questions out there are horrible and we love them. Like, it's like, has anybody had oral or anal sex with you before 10 years old? I'm like, have you actually sat down with somebody to ask them that question when they're struggling? Not a good question to ask, know? So we've got to change it all.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's what it sounds like you guys are helping to do too.
Yeah, we're just, we're trying to find all, I don't want to say we're trying to find all the answers, but we're trying to put all the people that we can together to build the biggest picture that everyone can take away.
Yep.
And it's from traditional to non-traditional. One of our non-traditional docs he's an MD, but he focuses purely on non-traditional treatments.
Yep.
He's a former Green Beret.
Oh, cool.
So now he speaks the language.
Yep.
He speaks the medical language.
He knows how to read.
And he knows the Eastern and non-traditionals.
That's cool.
Like the guy, but who would have thought, to tie those together?
Yeah.
And it's if it helps one person, it's a force multiplier.
That's right.
But if the one conversation with one doctor then helps 2, now we're at 6 and 10, and
that's all you can do. This is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like we're in that integration phase rollout, but yeah, we've got to get there. Because I think I saw a statistic the other day. Somebody's died from suicide once every 20 seconds. So somebody asked me like, "Who's your competitor?" I'm like, once every 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Like it's like we got to run as fast as we can run, while maintaining our own mental health and wellness. While trying to save like the world from killing itself.
Yeah, and the number that we always hear, it's 22, 22, 22. Well, it's not 22. It's more like 45 to 46.
Yeah.
When you combine all the actual, that's just veteran.
And they had no idea.
No.
There's
They don't talk about the active duty suicides. They don't talk about the police suicides. They don't talk about those people. You hear the veteran community because 20 years of war, but they don't talk about the others. You may see it pop up every now, but that 44 is tragic, or 46, the number. When you think about I mean, that's 100 people every hour, every 2 hours. You're wiping out entire cities in a matter of days.
Yep.
And there's no break on it right now. And we all need to come together somehow.
Right.
Do we think we have the answer? Partially, but there's a whole lot more to the puzzle.
Yep.
But it's figuring out how to get us
You have to get all the variables so you can figure out what's the best, best map to pick.
And realistically, are we going to save them all? No. But we can drop that number significantly if we get everybody moving in the same direction.
Absolutely.
And trying, taking their disciplines and working inter-organizationally and seeing what other people are doing. I think that's the secret sauce. And for us, that's our so what. To get people to see just a slightly different viewpoint from another org or another individual that may spark that extra thought process in their development or in their study.
Right.
And we feel that's what's going to really help start kicking that number back down.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I completely agree. So what would you tell a veteran today who's out there and maybe at the last glimmer of having any hope? What would you tell them?
Hold on. You've been in a far worse place. You've seen far worse in your times. There's people who love you. There's people who need you, but there's nobody who needs you more than you. And it's not worth ending it all over your current state of mind.
Storms always end.
This always end. Sometimes it gets the darkest right towards the end, but it's always there. But there are people there that you can reach out to, whether it's us at the Heroes Wellness Collective, whoever it may be, walking into your local hospital, your VA, whoever you feel comfortable with. Hell, it may just be picking up a phone call from one of your old team buddies and just calling them just to talk through it. But no matter how bad it is, it's even worse when you're gone. And it's not just on you, it's on everybody else that you leave behind.
That's right.
So push through the storm, stay strong, take the beating, get the help you need, and grow from it, and help the next person get out of that situation as well.
Yep. No, I think that's great advice. And I like to tell people too, like with the suicidal piece, if you kill yourself, your first degree relatives have a 40% increase of killing themselves. So if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the people around you. Even if you feel like you're a burden, you need to know if you're not here, there could be a 40% increase to your first degree, your parent, your kid, whomever, first degree relative.
Exactly. You're more a burden gone than you are where you feel you are in your current state.
That's right.
So just pull the boots up, try to keep in your own head, and just move forward one step at a time.
Yep. So if people were trying to find you, where would they find you at?
We're on the Apple Store and Google apps at the Heroes Wellness Collective, or you can find us at operationrecovery.org or the Heroes Wellness Collective Hub.org.
Awesome. All right, Ian. Well,
Thank you
so
very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that it brought you some insight and some impact into your life. For more on Revitalist, check out revitalist.com. Be sure to subscribe to this, as we are going to continue to change the narrative on mental health by bringing in a whole facet of groups in order to help address this global mental health crisis that we are all feeling. So thank you so much to the partners that were on this episode, and to get more information about them, please click on the links below.